to find our LCD, now remember, when we were simplifying rational expressions, we factored all numerators and all denominators. When we multiplied and divided, we factored all numerators and denominators. Now, we're going to factor all denominators only. Do not factor your numerators, just your denominators. Then we're going to build our LCD. We want every factor of every denominator. The most times it occurs as a factor. Now you should write that down so when we go through them you can see it. We want every factor of every denominator the most times it occurs as a factor. So it's every factor of every denominator the most times it occurs. In this example, we have 2 over x plus 3 over x squared plus 5 over x cubed. So let's build our LCD. Well, we look at the first denominator, and there's no factoring in this particular example. So in the first denominator, we can see that we have x as a factor. It only occurs once, but now we have to look at every other denominator and find out the most number of times it occurs as a factor. So it's once in the first one, twice in the second one, but 3 times in the third one. So our LCD is x cubed. Let's relook at that. The LCD is x cubed, which means it's x times x times x. Well, clearly this first denominator goes in. I can multiply this first denominator by x squared and I'll get x cubed. Clearly this second denominator goes in. I have x squared in here. X squared times x is x cubed. And of course the last denominator goes in because it is x cubed. So that's my LCD. So in this example we're given 3 expressions and we're told to find the LCD. Well, looking at the first denominator, I'm going to look at the numerical part first. I have 2, 4, and 1. What's the smallest number that 2, 4, and 1 divide evenly into? Well, that's going to be 4. Now let's look at the variables. In the first expression, we have x to the first power, so we know we need x. Question is, how many factors of x do we need? We have 1 in the first expression, we have 1 in the second expression, but we have 2 of them in the third. We want the most number of times it occurs as a factor, so we want 2 of them. Now let's look at the next variable. That's y. There's 1 factor of y in the first expression, 3 factors of y in the second, and 1 factor of y in the third. The most number of times it occurs as a factor is 3 times. So we want y cubed. We are not done because this last expression has a z, and we want every factor of every denominator. So I have to have z, and the most it occurs in any denominator as a factor is once, So I just need z to the first power. In this example, we have 3x over x squared minus 1, and that's supposed to be a comma in between. And then we have 5 over x plus 1. So we want to find our LCD, but we can't do so until we have all of our denominators factored. And this first denominator can be factored. So let's factor that. So we have two terms, GCF or difference of squares. Difference of squares. Now we're ready to build our LCD. So from the first denominator, we see that x plus 1 has to be there, and x minus 1 has to be there. The question is, how many factors of each do I need? Well, x plus 1 occurs as a factor once in the first denominator and once in the second, so the most it ever occurs is once. So I only need one factor of x plus 1. X minus 1 occurs as a factor once in the first denominator, and it doesn't occur at all in the second. So the most it occurs is once, so that's all I need. So this is my LCD. In this example, we have 7x plus 2 over x squared minus 3x minus 4, and then we have 2 over x squared plus 2x plus 1. So again, we're going to factor all denominators, and notice we don't care about the numerator for this part. We just want to factor all the denominators. So in the first one, we have a trinomial. Set up our double parentheses. Leading coefficient is 1, so we know we can put x and x. Last term is negative, so it's opposite signs. Factors of 4 whose difference is 3. Well, 4 times 1. And the larger factor gets the sign of the middle term. So we have factored this denominator. Now let's look at the second one. Again, we have a trinomial, so we set up our double parentheses. Leading coefficient is 1, so we know this. Last term is positive, so both signs match the middle term. Factors of 1 that add up to 2. 1 and 1. Now we're ready to build our LCD. Now from the first expression, we know we need x plus 1 as a factor. Is that a factor of the second expression? It is. But it's a factor twice. In fact, this could be rewritten as x plus 1 squared. So we need x plus 1 as a factor twice in our LCD. And now we need x minus 4 as a factor. And that occurs once in the first expression and not at all in the second. So we have all the factors of the first denominator, and we have all the factors of the second denominator. We are done. This is our LCD. I'm going to write that a little differently now. X plus 1 times x plus 1 times x minus 4. Here's my first denominator. If I multiply that by x plus 1, I'll have the LCD. On the other hand, here is my second denominator. So if I multiply that by x minus 4, I'll have my LCD.